This is Talking Heads, and we're talking to Enterprise Minister Laurence Skelly about ISEXPO 2018, which takes place on... Is it just Wednesday, or is it over more than one day?
It is Wednesday, is the main day, yeah.
All right, I've got a text here. Stu in the Courier, full-page ad for Isle of Man Expo, but no mention of the venue. Is it run by MI5, says Bill?
The Villa.
It's at the Villa?
Yes.
OK.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I bet you've taken that on board, though. I bet that somebody's head's going to roll about that, isn't it? For heaven's sake, ask Laurence Skelly to slow down. He's gabble, 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 falling over his words. Make him take a deep breath and talk more slowly, then we can hear what he's talking about, says Joe. That's my fault. I'm probably rushing you along. So Wednesday, it's all taking place on Wednesday. What's the kind of programme of events? How does it work?
Well, we have a host of different events. The kick-off event is the Brexit Breakfast, where we do have a very esteemed chair there, which is Yuri Bender, who's one of the senior editors at the Financial Times. Yuri's very familiar with the Isle of Man and clearly would understand the complexities and what's happening in the UK regarding this. So we have a Brexit breakfast to kick things off. And throughout the day, we've got various different keynote speakers that are addressed in different areas. But the one which is, I think, very interesting is the futurist floor. And that's where we just touched on earlier with regards to changes that are happening and things we should be talking about and the things we should be debating. And that could be anything from the demographics regarding population, skills, technology, education, environment, infrastructure. All these key points will actually be highlighted on what we call this futurist floor. And rather than when we set out to do this ISEXPO, we wanted it to be something more than a business exhibition, which is very static, can be quite sterile, stale almost. We wanted it to be a little bit more interactive, and that's what the purpose of the Futurist Floor is.
But is there a sort of an exhibition type thing as well? I mean, can people come along and have a mooch around and see who's talking about what, or is it just sort of events where people are talking? We
do have sponsorship partners, which you'll see representation there, and of course we are, as a department, will be there obviously as well, because we're there again to recognise that this is supporting business on the Isle of Man. So what we do find very often is that they don't understand what it is that we can do to help their business. So we will have teams there that will be able to relay that and explain what we can do to help them. And we've got a fairly big focus on the locate side of things, where we're hearing very consistently that the economy is going in a good positive direction, but the biggest problem is skill shortage. How do you attract and how do you retain skills here on the Isle of Man? So we're having a big focus on.
Isn't it one of those Field of Dreams things, though? If you create the business, then the skills will follow. Isn't that the problem with this?
Yes, and to a certain extent, Stu, that is correct. But today, a lot of skills are very mobile. So you've got, if you can work from home, you can probably work from the other end of the world. So you've got to recognise that. And in many ways, what we are always trying to promote, and it goes back to the programme for government, where we want special island to live and work. So it's about getting that balance right. And I think we live here and breathe it, we understand it, but sometimes we take it for granted. And if you do travel, you do work away, you'll recognise that, I think. So what we're trying to do is promote that environment as well, and try and make the Isle of Man a sticky place to live and work.
How many people are you bringing over for this? How many people do you think you're going to get over for it?
I don't know. As I said earlier, I wasn't sure how many people will be visiting, but we've had a very good number of visitors from a business perspective and also journalist interest. We'll check on that later. But I did check on the registrations just before coming out, and I think we're getting close to 1,600 people who had registered to attend the event, which is great. And we know what the Manx are like with Trade Allure. There's still plenty of time to register on that front. And we just hope people will come. They'll hopefully be interested. They'll be inspired, and they see that there is hopefully a good positive output.
Is there anything at ISEXPO that is of interest to somebody who's a kipper smoker or a widget manufacturer, or is it all about bright, shiny young things?
No, as I said earlier, it's for all businesses, and we can explain, again, you've got an idea, you've got a business, or you're thinking about making a change, and as I say, more and more people are making those career changes. How do you do that? And what we want to do is look at one of the speakers, for example, they call about talent acquisition. What that means is quite simply, how do you get people to come and work for you? And today it is a competitive environment, and we must think that we've got an unemployment record low, which is great on one hand, but on the other hand, if you're in business and you're growing your business, which we know businesses are, they want to employ, and they want to employ significant numbers. Where are they going to get the people? How do they retain those people when they do get them?
I think that it's all very well looking at successful case histories and things like that, having very successful speakers, keynote speakers at things like this, but isn't it dangerous to make it all seem a bit too easy to people thinking about setting up their own businesses? Aren't we damaging young people, especially by telling them that the world's their oyster? Shouldn't we be a bit more circumspect about it? I mean, I've been involved in various businesses in the past, and I've made chunks of money in some of them, but I've lost chunks of money in others, and I think I would learn more about somebody who'd lost the shirt on a deal to tell me what to look out for and what, why things can sometimes go wrong, rather than just somebody saying, oh, well, I'm making a fortune out of this job, sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's when you go through the old small business startup or macro business startup scheme. You go through that process. You've got a great idea, you think you have. So where's your business plan? Where's your marketing plan? Where's your finance? And you go through this process, and you still want to try it. Then good for you if you want to give it a go. And you may not succeed. And I think if you look at the most successful entrepreneurs, you'll find that they didn't succeed their first, second, goodness knows how many times. But, if you don't try, you never know. And you can suppress that entrepreneurship by saying, just go and get a job, which some people may want to do, and that's fine. You want a steady income, you want stability. But the reality today, though, is that steady income and that stability is less and less in terms of opportunities. So,
people don't get jobs for life anymore, do they?
Whether that's good or bad, it's just the way things actually are. But what we want to do is to say, listen, if you want to try, you want to do something, come to us. We will try and give you the best advice. The decision will still be yours, and we'll also mentor you as well as you go through that particular process, because that will be with somebody who's experienced in business, and we'll be able to ask you those challenging questions. Are you sure you really want to do this? Have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? So as we can try and do that, because ultimately it comes back to, if you want a growing, sustainable economy, you're going to have to reinvent your economy to be dynamic and diversify, as we've already touched on. And to do that, you've got to promote innovation, and innovation is about just taking risk in many times, and balancing that risk against the diversification is quite a tough challenge. But we want to encourage that.
So Wednesday, it's an exposition of all that's good about the Isle of Man and the people who are here, and the talents and skills that we've got, and the help that people can get to hopefully relocate to the Isle of Man. It kind of brings me on to a wider issue, though, because it's all very well looking at the Villa Marina and thinking, oh, this is all very nice, but people will get there along Loch Promenade, along the promenade that is, we know it's up for a £25 million refurb, but I worry about that being our shop window, especially things like the prom scheme. Isn't that like fitting a new carpet in a slum?
Well, I certainly would hope not, and it's long overdue. I think we'd all recognise that, but the commitment there, certainly political will, is absolutely there, and you are going to see it. And I suppose you go back and you think, you look at the villa, what a showcase, what a fabulous facility that we do have there, and that is a great place to do it. And if the weather holds like this, there's no better place to showcase the Isle of Man.
Okay, let's have a look at some comments from people. Stu, I've never heard so much waffle. Oh, good, one of your fans has been on already. DED seem to be interested in bringing businesses over here. They want the big players. There are plenty of small business owners on Ireland who'd welcome funding to grow. There seems to be so much emphasis on export. How can you possibly export cost effectively? Bring in raw materials, then ship out finished products. As soon as you mention that you're not exporting, government aren't interested. Time to look at helping more Manx businesses who pay the tax. Any thoughts, Mr. Skelly?
Yeah, we certainly do, and want to try and support all businesses. Of course, I think what's highlighted there by that contributor is the displacement issue. So if we supported every business that was, competing with the next door business, then it could be detrimental, really. But I will say this, that what we're trying to do is we are going to review our financial support schemes through the summer to see how do we support those businesses that are growing, and in particular in terms of employment. Because the reality is, going forward, we need an economy that's diversified, but we also need an economy that's got substance. So that's about having businesses that are real, they are got bricks and mortar, and they've got real jobs, and therefore paying real tax.
Tell me about this enterprise scheme, because on the face of it, that's failed. You've got 50 million quid put to one side to try and invest or to encourage new businesses, and you've only spent 3 million, I think it was. I saw in the news the other day.
You did, yes. And what that is a commitment to support business right here on the Isle of Man, physical business with real jobs. And that's what we're doing this summer, is that we are reviewing all our financial schemes to understand how do we better serve them. One of them that we're looking at very early, and we'll be announcing very shortly, is the macro business scheme. I said earlier that we lowered the age to 16-year-olds who can actually now apply for that, because the entrepreneur today is getting much younger. Can we increase the benefits to that is the other side to that. So we are looking at all our schemes, and we'll be doing so throughout the summer, and the macro business one is the first one.
All right. Stu, so much money being wasted on talk. Government should be investing in renewable energy generation through the MUA, not constant guff like this, says Simon.
Well, renewable energy, yes, absolutely. If you want a dynamic economy, energy is absolutely vital. We also have, I think, telecommunications is the other key component here. Energy we do need, and we're actually at the sort of final stages, I think, for licensing for the seismics to look at the hydrocarbons in the 12 miles of seabed that we own. 90% of our territories out there, and we think there's energy out there, as well as I think the transition towards renewables will come. But the telecom strategy, which is before Timble tomorrow, I think is a really key component for the future, because we do need a good, strong, resilient and affordable telecoms infrastructure.
All right. You state there's more people in work, but what type of work? 0-hour contracts or fixed-term contracts? The public feel more in poverty than the last generation. I mean, that's something that comes up quite often, this thing about 0-hour contracts and about people, firms employing people part-time to save on national insurance. It feels as though there are all sorts of loopholes. I mean, is there the will in government to try and close some of them?
Yes. I mean, I have a question about minimum wage, and of course there's been a lot of discussion about the living wage, and I think this is the balance that you have to try and strike here, is that I think we've seen the minimum wage go up by 17% these last few years, which is great news on the one hand, but what we need to do is to balance that that political and social desire with the reality of business, and we've got to be careful we don't raise it too quick, because we could have more 0-hour contracts and could be a threat to jobs. So it is a balancing act, and we're looking at the latest round for the minimum wage for this year. All
right. Question: how many people have come into the exhibition from off Ireland? Well, you weren't sure about that, but you say that 1,600 people have pre-registered for this. Any idea as a percentage roughly about the number that are coming from off Ireland?
Well, we have had in the hundreds, or rather in the 100 plus, I think, of recent years, and very often, as I say, there'll be a mix of people for business, and also we do get good interest from journalists, because that's about them promoting the Isle of Man off Ireland.
Okay. Why is there so much emphasis on export? I guess the answer is that with an island of 80,000 people, you've got to look to bigger markets. I mean, is that where we're at with it?
Predominantly, yes, because export generates imported revenue and doesn't affect the displacement issue.